is the time of year where everything's waking up, and I'm just praying that this isn't a false spring. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am seeing all kinds of signs of spring and I am getting super excited. So what I thought I would do today is take you on a little garden walk. We'll walk around the garden beds. I'll show you what's waking up, coming out of dormancy, things that I'm most excited about. I'll give you a sneak peek into the projects that we are going to do this year. And also, because I've been doing YouTube for a year now, which just seems crazy to say that a year has flown by, I'll be able to show you what these garden spaces look like during the different seasons. So let's get going. If you're new here, I garden here in a pretty typical suburban neighborhood lot. I think we're just under half an acre, and as you can see by the playground, I do have kids. I'm keeping a good bit of lawn right now for them to run around, but I also love to garden. So for me, it's about finding the right balance of garden space to kid play space. So let's start the tour right up front. This space has undergone a little bit of a transition. If you're not new to the channel, you know that I created this bed using the sheet mulching method, I would say about March of last year. And you know, rest in peace, there used to be a very beautiful spiral topiary holly right here that I really loved, but for whatever reason, it didn't love me back and it didn't love the space and it didn't make it. So now I get to think about what else I can use here as a specimen tree. I think specimen tree shopping is really fun. So that's something that I'm gonna save up for and add into the space at a later date. For now, what I have in this space are some limelight hydrangea and Edgeworthia cuttings. Both of those plants are great plants that you can take cuttings from and just shove into the ground this time of year. Before you snip and propagate, know that there are plants that are protected by patents. Limelight hydrangeas and Edgeworthia are off patents, and so they're, you know, free game to propagate. And I don't really know where these are gonna go if they take, but these are always great things to have and to share with neighbors and friends, because there's nothing more fun than sharing the beauty in our gardens. Moving down towards the playground, this long bed is one that I'm super excited about. This bed was created 2 years ago. My philosophy is to kind of tackle one space at a time, so that's what you're going to be seeing throughout this tour. There are some beds that I have that are older. I'm still making changes to them because the garden really is never finished, but other beds are kind of new, and so it's really fun from year to year to see how they do. This bed did really, really well for me last year and was so much fun to watch. There are some great perennials here that I want to highlight. And then I added in a couple of new additions that I can't wait to see how they do this year, as they were clearance finds last year. Here's the full layout of this bed, and right now you can see, thank goodness for evergreen interests. Evergreens that I have in this bed are the Slenderella Weeping Blue Spruce, a dwarf Mugo Pine, gardenias, and these azaleas. These Encore Angel azaleas are all budded up. I cannot wait for spring. This fall I also added in some Mr. Folker anemones. These are absolutely stunning, and I love that electric blue color against the daffodils. So pretty. This bed also has a number of peonies in it, and I'm excited. This might be their first year of bloom. As you know, when you plant peonies from bare roots, sometimes they take a little while to show their blooms. And then this time of year, all of the perennials are starting to wake up, so the garden doesn't look like much right now, but I'm going to insert in some footage from last year just in case you're looking for some really good perennials. This Magenta Pearl Phlox was a repeat bloomer and just such a stunner. And then, as always, I've had really great luck with Powwow White Echinacea. That is always a super reliable perennial for me. And also this Mongolian Aster is one that blooms all summer long and has done really, really well in this space. Late last fall, I scored this Summerific Holy Grail Hibiscus, and it's in this bed now. I can't wait to see it bloom. And then moving down here, I'm a little shocked to already see buds on this Bloomerang lilac. It is something that I look forward to seeing in bloom every single year. It smells absolutely divine. Now, I will be honest and say that I don't get to see the bloomerang, so I don't really see repeat blooms on this too much. It might be just because I'm too far south. I haven't really figured it out. I've pruned, I haven't pruned, I moved it from a shadier spot to a sunnier spot. I don't want to have too much sun on this because I'm kind of pushing the zone a bit, but also need that sun for it to bloom and rebloom and be happy. but I'm seeing lots of buds. It's going to be a great show, and I'm going to be grateful for whatever show I have. Another thing that I'm shocked to see budded up is this tree peony. I have a small obsession with trying things in my garden that might not make it or might be hard to get. So this is something that I ordered online and I got it from Steve at Natchez Glen. He's like the peony king. So really excited to see it budded up. And it's another reason why I really hope that we don't get any more frost, because I would hate for anything to happen to this bloom. It is the highlight of my spring. This bed, which is right next to the playground, it is giving me all the spring excitement and feels, even though it looks a little blah for now. But you can just see all of the potential and all of the color explosion that's about to happen. I do want to point out two plants really quickly, and I'll also mix in some clips from last season so you can see what it looks like in just a couple of short months.
So pulmonaria or lungwort is one of my favorite early spring blooming perennials, not just because of the beautiful blue blooms, but also those leaves are gorgeous and light up a shade garden. It's also a pretty solid value plant because it is a very vigorous grower and it's really easy to divide and spread around to other locations in your garden, but also not so vigorous that you need to divide and it's going to drive you crazy and cause a lot of maintenance. The other plant that I wanted to call out back here was this Chinese snowball viburnum. This blooms in early to mid-spring and has hydrangea-like blooms and gets me so excited for hydrangea season. Huge, giant, white blooms. I absolutely love this plant. I don't have space for it in my garden, so I'm training it tree form, which just means I'm removing the lower limbs so that I am making space for it in my garden.
And moving over to the other side of the playground, this area looks pretty sleepy. This tends to be kind of my put it in the ground and see how it does playground garden. So I don't really have concentrated drifts of too many things. And I noticed that I have one alyssum. It's looking absolutely beautiful. And I think I'm gonna have to get more because it's really filling me with joy. I think anything that blooms this time of year, I'm hyper fixated on because there just aren't as many blooms in the garden. Note to self, I'm gonna need to find a spot for a drift of alyssum instead of just one random one. And I really can't wait for this area to wake up. It's one of my favorite beds, primarily just due to two plants. One is the phlox. The phlox that I have in this bed is opening act Pinkadot phlox. It's from Proven Winners. It blooms much earlier than your typical summer blooming phlox, and it is a showstopper. It blooms a couple of different times for me, so it looks good throughout the season. It just pairs so perfect with the oak leaf hydrangea. They both start blooming at about the same time, and it just gets better and better every year. While we're on the topic of other plants I'm absolutely obsessed with and I can't wait to see leaf out in the garden, this is another one. This is a weeping redbud. It's Ruby Falls, I believe is the variety name. Beautiful bloomer, but really, I mean, I love blooms, but the foliage is so good and it holds on to its deep burgundy coloring for a good number of weeks. Behind it, I have a autumn moon Japanese maple. I'm also kind of a Japanese maple nut. I guess I'm an every plant nut, but the contrast between the autumn moon and this weeping redbud is just like, it was a happy accident and I couldn't have planned it better if I wanted to. And because you want to mix up colors in the garden, I have my burgundy, I have my chartreuse, and then behind me I have my blue, or you know, as blue as it kind of gets in the garden. This is quickly starting to become one of my favorite ground covers, and not just this time of year, because it's in bloom when not many things are. Georgia Blue Creeping Speedwell is just, it's so easy to control. I'll take scissors to wherever it's growing and I didn't want it to grow and just cut it off. It's very easy to pull up. A really nice creeping ground cover that I feel like looks really well foliage wise and has a beautiful bloom. This area was the first area that we kind of installed in terms of garden beds. So these are the oldest. I've played around with it and changed things out throughout the years, but I think these are going on their 4th or 5th season. And like, I'm so excited. Last year we added in these pea gravel paths and this trellis. I've got New Dawn growing on this side. It does okay. It gets pretty black spotted, but I also don't really treat it as well as I should have. So this season I'm gonna try to stay on top of spraying and feeding and see if it does better for me. And then on this side of the arbor, I have Jasmina growing. I planted it late last season, so this will be the first year I ever see it. And I'm really excited about it. as well as the clematis that I have planted on this side, which is going to be on its second season. So really things are starting to become more in their prime, and that just makes me so excited. Even though this bed is about 4 years old, there are a couple of things that are new that I'm really excited about for this season. Last year I planted 3 Atlas roses. They were about a gallon size. I got them from Great Garden Plants. So this year is going to be their year to really shine. Those are the roses that bloom that beautiful peachy color, which is, I think, the color of the year this year. So if clearly I'm not a fashionista and on trend or anything, at least my garden's on trend this year thanks to the Atlas roses. Another thing that I might be switching out is this variegated English ivy. This is year 5 going on here, and I originally planted it here thinking that it would be much less aggressive than regular ivy, and it really has. Up until this year, I would whack it back maybe 2 or 3 times a year. It was super easy to control, mostly just with scissors or lightly yanking. This is the first year that I've already whacked it back 3 times this season, and I can see parts that are growing again that I swear I just whacked back last time. So I think this is the year where this ground cover is now making me put in more work than I'd like to for a ground cover. So I'm going to switch it out for something else, but I don't know what that something else is yet. I love discovering ground cover, so if you have a favorite ground cover that's worked well for you in the southeast in a shady spot, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. I do have a couple of mystery areas. It always cracks me up when I plant a drift of 3 things and consistently one of them dies. So one of my favorite yarrows is the Firefly series. I've planted Firefly Sunshine, which is the yellow yarrow, and every single year I've had to replace one of those yarrows, and it's getting to the point where it's starting to become maddening. Last year I even added Permatil, which is a gravel, to give it more drainage, and I lost it again over the winter. So I'm not sure what's going on. I'll probably likely try one more time, but like, why does that happen, universe? Why? Why can't I just have a drift like everyone else? So this Dianthus is another spot where there used to be 3 and now there is a drift of 2. Dianthus is another plant that really likes well-draining soil, and I'm not really sure what gives. When I have problem spots like this, there's kind of 2 options. One is you can go out, get another plant and replace it. That's the impatient way to kind of garden. Otherwise, I can also wait. This Dianthus and yarrow is going to spread a bit. Its mature size is obviously much bigger than what the size is right now, only a year after I've planted it. And it'll look more like 3 plants or more of a drift if I was to be more patient. But sometimes you just want that instant gratification. And I'm feeling a little instant gratification-y these days. So we'll see what happens. If I happen to go to a garden center and it happens to be right there and it's the same variety, then of course I'm going to pick it up and be impatient, but I'm not sure I'm gonna order it online, if that makes sense. Dianthus is absolutely fabulous. It is peach pie Dianthus. It smells so good and it is absolutely stunning. If you see it in your area and you've got a spot in your garden that has excellent drainage, it is one to pick up and add because it's very good. These days I'm starting to really love and look for plants that smell amazing in the garden. Plants like that Edgeworthia that'll just perfume your entire yard, and it has kept my spirit up all winter, not only with its beautiful buds and beautiful blooms throughout the winter, but also that scent. Speaking of things that are blooming early, look at this GM. I can't believe this GM is blooming this time of year. I'm starting to notice that I think we're gonna have kind of an early spring, which is another reason why I really hope this isn't a fall spring, because a lot of things are really waking up and budding up and starting to bloom. So this is Prettycoat's Peach GM. It is one that I wish I planted towards the front of the border, much shorter GM bloom, but it is an absolutely stunning color and just a very reliable plant that I've had here for a few seasons now. So I can say that with certainty that it's come back for me and looked great across multiple seasons. And then let me share a couple of projects that we are planning for 2024. I'm hesitant to share it because life always happens, but this is the plan for 2024. Whether God will laugh and change those plans, we will see. But I would love for 2 things to happen. First off, we are down to 4 chickens and they are now going on 4 years old. Once chickens reach 3 years old, that's really their peak production. And then after that, egg production decreases every year. And while chickens are super fun, We primarily have them for egg producing reasons, and so they've got to make the equation work out between feed and eggs. Otherwise, it's just kind of like something that you have in your backyard and not really super productive. If you didn't know, chickens live until 8 years old, and so there's almost as many years that they're not producing eggs as when they are producing eggs. So that's something you have to consider if you're looking at adding chickens into your life. If we do get chicks, it will be this spring, and I will share with you how we raise them, how we transition them outdoors, and what we are going to do with the ladies behind us. So that is project number 1. And then project number 2 is I would love to get a shed. We currently store all of our garden tools, the lawnmower, the wood chipper, the leaf mulcher, all of the things. All of the things are in our garage, which is also a makeshift wood shop. So we haven't stored cars in our garage since we've developed hobbies, basically. So getting a shed that would go across the fence right here, we could landscape something cute around it, and it would block out the view of the compost pile, is something that's been on my wish list for a while. And I think, fingers crossed, we're going to do it this year, either with a kind of prefab kit that you install yourself or completely DIY. We're still crunching the numbers and trying to decide what makes the most sense, and not just what makes the most sense financially, but what's going to make the most sense from a timing perspective too, because weekends are limited and I feel like life is busier than ever these days. So stay tuned for that, and hopefully that is this year as well. Okay, I'd be absolutely remiss if I didn't share 2 more plants that are bringing me so much joy, and then I want to give you a little bit of an update as to what's going on in the side yard. So first off, this is a Rising Sun Redbud. It's been on my wish list for forever. It is an absolutely beautiful redbud to add in the garden. I kind of have a thing for redbuds, I guess. But what I really do have a thing for is chartreuse foliage, and this delivers. Another thing that has that chartreuse foliage that delivers is down here. It is double play candy corn spirea. This shrub would be massively overused in my garden if it was an evergreen, but I have it here and I really love it, and I have to hold myself back from adding it everywhere. Absolutely gorgeous shrub for full sun, and it's fairly low growing and compact. I think it stays about 3 feet tall and 3 feet wide, and it's very easy to kind of cut down even lower, and it grows very moundy, so it's not something that you have to be constantly pruning on. But the color of the leaves, when this first leaf's out and as it changes throughout the season, is absolutely striking. And I'm not even mentioning the blooms, which are stunning as well. They're a bright fuchsia bloom, and I think it's about probably June-ish time frame, but the leaves are just so good. It looks fantastic all season round, and it's just a very bright, stunning plant to add to your garden. And lastly, let's talk about why the side yard looks like it's under construction once again. We decided last week to go out and get the lumber and just go and create this cut flower garden. We've been talking about it for ages, and so we went with this garden box design, and I put together a video on how we created it, the cost breakdown, the material that we used, and how we're going to fill it. And now we just have to finish it. So the cut flower garden is going to be on this side of the path, and on the other side of the path against the fence, I actually got a landscape design consultation. A really cool service that Servscape offers is where you can get a virtual garden design. Basically, you tell them about your garden style, you tell them about the space that you have trouble with and the size, dimensions, lighting conditions, and they draw you up a plan, and then you go through a couple revisions. And I just really wasn't sure about what to put in the space, and I wanted to design it right. And I've been very open and transparent that I'm not a garden designer or landscape designer. I am a homeowner that happens to be very passionate about plants and has tried a lot of different perennials and cultivars and combinations in my own hunt for creating my own spaces. But I was also really curious as to what a landscape designer might think of when they looked at my space and if they had any better ideas. So this was a very affordable option to get a design or a concept and then also get some of that money credited towards the plants. So they came up with a very beautiful design. I asked them for a cottage garden vibe and they totally nailed it. So this is another project that is in the works for 2024 and I can't wait for it. So we'll have perennials and flowering shrubs on one side of the path against the fence, and on the other side of the path will be the cut flower garden that I've been dreaming of having for so many years. This time of the year is such a promising time of the year because things are waking up, they're budding up, they're in bloom. You can almost taste the fruits of what is to come later, like nectarine, hopefully, if we don't have another freeze. Also, it's a great time to plan and dream your garden. So if there's an area or a new bed that you want to dig out and create, now is a wonderful time to get those plants in the ground. I like to say that if I like to be outside, plants like to be planted. The milder, cooler temperatures make it very easy for the plants to settle in and grow healthy roots before the heat of the summer really comes on and things start to struggle. Hope you are enjoying the weather where you are, enjoying the signs of spring that you're seeing in your garden, and making those plans for that next garden bed. As you can see, there's a couple of things that I'm excited about for 2024. I am taking it one project at a time this year because there's no reason to rush a garden. I am really leaning into taking life bit by bit. Anyways, enough blabbing. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel, and I will see you in the next video.